Alrighty. What is up, everybody? Welcome into the Week 5 AMA simulcasted on 4 for 4 and Dynasty League Football's YouTube channel. You may notice something a little bit different than from the past couple of weeks. I am not joined today by John Paulsen, the amazing expert fantasy ranker, John Paulsen. Unfortunately, I guess not unfortunately. It's his birthday, or it was his birthday a couple weeks ago, and as a present for his birthday, his family is taking him to go see U2 at the Vegas Sphere. So, unfortunate for us, but very fortunate for him. He is going to get to go see U2 live in concert at the Sphere in Vegas. So, he's not with us today. Hopefully, I'll make do. I do have the 4 for 4, his John Paulsen's rankings up here for start sits and stuff. So, if you have start sit questions still, I have at least input from Paulsen on how those start sits should go on top of my own personal opinion. But we have the rankings here. So, of course, as always, this is still just a flat out AMA for the next 60 minutes or so here. I'll just try to answer as many possible questions as I possibly can, and we'll get through them. We'll get through them. So Valentino is starting us off with a couple questions here. This is an interesting. I don't like that. Hold on. Bubble. There we go. Valentino is 0-4 in his half PPR league. He needs a win, and his running backs are Bijan, Achane, Pollard, and Breece Hall. And he currently says that he has the first three running backs starting right now. Bijan, Achane, and Pollard are his two running backs and probably his flex as well. But his gut says that Hall is going to go wild. So do you start Breece Hall over any of these players? I also kind of have the same opinion that Breece Hall is going to go wild this week against Denver. That Denver defense is just horrible. And Robert Saleh has come out and said that there is no longer any restraints on Breece Hall. The issue, though, is that we just haven't seen, like, outside of week one, when he had like limited work and just did really well in week one, we really haven't seen Breece Hall do all that much. And, obviously we've seen stuff from Bijan. Pollard is a workhorse in the Dallas Cowboys offense. Achane has been absolutely berserk over the past 2 weeks. And if you look at the running back rankings from 4 for 4 from John Paulsen in half PPR formats, he has Bijan, Pollard, and Achane all as top 10 running backs this week. They're all ranked inside the top 10. Breece Hall is RB20 down in here. So, there's like a 1.5 point per game difference between Hall and Achane. But Achane has a great matchup against the Giants. Obviously, Pollard gets San Francisco, so that could be kind of hit or miss. But if it turns into a shootout and he has the opportunity to score touchdowns, then that's good. Bijan is Bijan, and he plays Houston. You're never sitting Bijan Robinson. So it sucks that you can't play Breece Hall, but I think it's probably the smarter play because I would like to see it first. Once I see it and I see kind of workhorse ability from him and workhorse fantasy production, then I'd be more willing to throw in Hall, and then maybe you can try to work some sort of trade to get one of these guys off your roster and improve somewhere else, so then you can start the other three. But as of right now, I would leave in the guys that you have, I think, with Bijan for sure. Pollard, I still think for sure. And Achane just is going nuts. So I would stick with the three that you have. But the other question, same half PPR. He needs to pick one of these wide receivers between Romeo Doubs, Cortland Sutton, Josh Reynolds, or Michael Wilson, the new breakout wide receiver in Michael Wilson. For me, if you're only starting one of these guys, I don't know how I feel about Sutton because they do play a good pass defense in the Jets. And if Sauce Gardner gets him, then that's going to be kind of annoying. Dobbs is interesting as well, too. They get Vegas, and Vegas has been pretty good in terms of allowing fantasy, like high-end fantasy points to the wide receiver position. Michael Wilson, is he a 1 week thing or is he not? Josh Reynolds gets Carolina. They've also been more of a run funnel than a pass funnel, and the way that Dave Montgomery's been running, that should work out really well. So looking again at the rankings from 4 for 4, Romeo Doubs is the top ranked wide receiver out of these four players. He is at wide receiver 30. Cortland Sutton is right behind him at 33. And then Michael Wilson and Josh Reynolds are back-to-back at 41 and 42. So I do agree with this. Romeo Dobbs would be the player that I would have picked before I read these rankings, and the rankings just kind of agree with that. So Dobbs would be the answer for me, but they're all very close. And if you feel personally good about one or the other, then I don't necessarily disagree with you. Colby's down here. Colby is a YouTube member for the DLF channel, so we appreciate the support. Colby, thank you so much. He's got a couple questions here on tight ends. One on Dallas Goedert and then one on Sam Laporta in a dynasty format and perspective. So we'll answer the Dallas Goedert one first. What's your current feelings on him? Is he a sell? If so, who's a good pivot? I don't really think that Dallas Goedert is a sell right now. I think it's just you kind of have to hold. It's been really annoying the fact that he has seen a decent number of targets so far, but just for whatever reason, like the yardage is just not there. So I'm really, there's nothing really that's made me say Goddard is not still the guy that I believe that he was coming into the season. And what he showed that he could have been at the first 10 weeks of the season last year when he was pacing for 1,000 yards. So it's just, I feel like this is just kind of the ebbs and flows of the Philadelphia Eagles offense. We saw Devonta Smith go off in 2 or 3 weeks. We saw AJ Brown go off the past couple of weeks. And Dallas Goedert, yeah, is just kind of the third guy there. And they've been really effective running the ball as well. So I don't think he's personally a sell. I feel like people are really down on him. I'm holding on to him in Dynasty just because I don't think people really want Goddard right now. As for Sam Laporta, though, I do think that he is a top 5 Dynasty tight end. I mean, we have Kelsey and Andrews and Hawkinson up there. And then after that, it gets into this really kind of weird tier of tight ends when you include, Kittle and Pitts. And now you throw in like Sam Laporta. So Sam Laporta to me is the tight end 4 out of that whole entire group. I'd pay a first for him if you still can. If you can upgrade from Goddard to Sam Laporta by adding like a second, or go from Kittle to Laporta by maybe moving some other positions around, I wouldn't add a second to Kittle to go get Laporta. Although I don't think that's terrible value. I just personally wouldn't do it yet. But it's getting closer and closer to doing that every single week as they separate themselves within that tier. If you can move Waller in a second for Laporta, Freiermuth and, a couple seconds for Laporta, that's the price that I'd be looking at for Laporta. I think that he's going to be on an ascending track from here on out for the rest of this season and into next year. So if you can get on board now, even if the trade kind of seems like it's a little bit of an overpay now, it may not be an overpay in just a few months here. Yam Baggy, odd season. Good players are bad. Bad players are good. Stay strong and trust your studs. I'm holding on still to all the players that haven't necessarily produced yet, but that we thought we're going to produce before the season started. I mean, if you just look at like last year, for example, through the first 4 weeks, this was actually a tweet that I remembered. I forget who tweeted it out, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire last year, through 4 weeks was the RB4, averaging 18.9 fantasy points per game. Jamal Williams was a top 6 running back. Miles Sanders was a top 9 running back. James Robinson was still an RB1 4 weeks into the season last year, as was Cordero Patterson and Khalil Herbert. And then Damian Harris was down in here at RB18. There's so much football left to still be played that I'm not necessarily worried about some players that are underproducing it or not so far through 4 weeks, especially when you talk about like running backs and wide receivers. There's still so much of the season left where a lot of stuff can change very, very drastically. Hollywood Brown was a top 6 wide receiver last year through 4 weeks. Curtis Samuel was a back end wide receiver 1. Cortland Sutton was wide receiver 14 through 4 weeks last year. It's just, it all can get so crazy through a small sample size. But then whenever we start playing another, 10 to 12 weeks here, things can start to even out pretty quickly. Isaac, would you trade Miles Sanders and Michael Wilson for Jahmyr Gibbs? Yes, I would. I'm assuming this isn't a Dynasty question, but especially in Dynasty, I would. But yeah, I would still be willing to do that in a redraft format. Just going and doing a 2-for-1 allows you to pick up another player, maybe the next Michael Wilson, and you get a player that I still believe in. I still believe in Jahmyr Gibbs. You're going to have to kind of pick the matchups that he'll perform well in, matchups that are more conducive to maybe like high scoring games or games where the Lions are going to have to continue to score to keep up and pass to keep up, and not necessarily just dominate on the ground like they did last week or potentially are going to be doing on Sunday against Carolina. So you're going to have to pick and choose your games with Jahmyr Gibbs. But I still think that that's worth it to get him than it is to have Sanders and Michael Wilson and two guys taking up your bench. And then you're able to pick up somebody else for the 2-for-1. So I'd still be willing to do that in redraft. Zach is asking, in a 12-man PPR dynasty start 10 rebuilding 1-3 team, do you trade away Calvin Ridley and a late first for Jackson Smith and Jigba? He also has Wilson, Quentin Johnson, and JMO. I feel like Ridley and JSN are relatively close together in terms of value. I don't know if their value difference is a late first. With some of the, people are kind of worried about JSN right now. And I don't think that like this, I feel like this is a wild trade even before the season started to go and buy JSN. Can you do Jameson Williams in a late first, or Ridley and Quentin Johnson, or Ridley and Jameson Williams to go get JSN and avoid paying the first? I wouldn't, especially on a rebuilding team. I would probably hold on to that first as much as you can. I'm definitely all on board trading away Ridley and going to try to get JSN, but that first isn't doing it for me. I would try to do it with the second and see if you can keep on and hold on to that first as a rebuilder. Just posted this in the comments of your video for yesterday and then got the notification that you're live. My Deshaun Watson in London for Lawrence in an early second in a half PPR Superflex start 9 as a contender. Awesome. Let me see. Deshaun in London. Whoa. Autofocus. Autofocus on the DSLR. Deshaun in London for Lawrence in an early second. I think I do this. I think I do this. I would take Trevor Lawrence and the second. This feels like one of those trades, and Russ kind of talked about it as well too, or has mentioned kind of trades like this where it feels like a sandwich where it's like Lawrence is the best asset, then the next two best assets are Deshaun and London that you're giving up, and then to just kind of make up a little bit of that value difference, so they added on an early second. That's the least valuable asset, but it's just enough to kind of make the trade kind of even. So I'd be willing to do this. I'm kind of done with the Deshaun Watson experiment in Cleveland. I don't think that he's going to get back to Texans form. And London, I love Drake London, but it's so up and down, and there's no reason for the Falcons to not continue doing what they've been doing. And with him being so up and down, kind of touchdown dependent, moving off of him just to go up and get Trevor Lawrence. And if that is an early 24 second, like if that's a top 3 second round pick next year in a Superflex league, then that's still going to be a pretty solid pick overall. I mean, you talk about like this year, that was like potentially Devon Achane or, Marvin Mims or Tank Bigsby. Like, it's not like a terrible prospect overall. And if you hit on that guy, then that could ultimately end up pushing this trade a little bit further in your favor. So I'd be willing to do this. I'll take Trevor Lawrence in the early second and move off of Deshaun Watson. Irv Smith or Chark for the flex. Am I missing something on Irv Smith? Well, I guess when you're comparing him to Chark, then it doesn't necessarily matter. I don't like this at all. Hold on, let me type this in here. Irv Smith is ranked as the 126 in flex, and Chark is ranked as 99th. So I would take DJ Chark. I was already taking DJ Chark beforehand, but I wanted to check with the rankings. Chark has a solid-ish matchup against Detroit. Like they're a really good run defense, but they can be beat through the air. And of course, they're gonna have to, like, Carolina's just gonna have to throw anyway. So hopefully DJ Chark can do something for you. I think something more than Irv Smith. So I'd be willing to play Chark in the flex than Irv. Here for the memes, back at it again with a $10 super chat, man. Thank you so much. Every single week, Here for the Memes is in here. So we need to like come up with like a chat, like something in chat where everybody's like, hey, super chat, awesome, that's amazing. Like, we need to come up with something. We'll figure out what that is. But Here for the Memes, $10 super chat. We appreciate it so much. So his question here, or at least he's got 2 trades. One is a 24 late first, late second, Godwin and Jerome Ford for CeeDee Lamb and a third. Okay, so for CeeDee Lamb. So a first, second, Godwin and Ford for CeeDee Lamb. I'm taking CeeDee Lamb in that. That's a whole lot of kind of meh to nothing assets, and you're just going up and you're getting a top 3, top 4 dynasty wide receiver. So absolutely in love with that trade, especially if that late first or late second is they ultimately use that on players and rookies that aren't all that good. Then just go get CeeDee Lamb. All the risk is on the side that you gave up, and just taking the known in CeeDee Lamb is amazing. The second trade, Kyron Williams and a third for a 25 first and second. I'm taking the picks on that one, though. I've been saying for like the past 3 or 4 weeks now that if you're able to sell Kyron Williams for a first, I'm absolutely doing that. So normally I'm speaking in terms of like the 2024 class. If you can sell Kyron for a 24 first, I'd be willing to do that. So because it's a 25 first, it's still kind of in there, but you got the second thrown in as well too. So that's that kind of makes up for the difference between 24 and 25. At the end of the day, though, that's still a first round pick, and you're just gonna have to wait a little bit longer. But when we get to 2025, you have a first round pick, and I don't really think that Kyron Williams is going to be all that much in 2 years, let alone maybe potentially like 2024. So I absolutely love that trade as well too. I love both these trades for you. These are absolutely fantastic dynasty moves, and you are winning on these ones. So thank you so much for the super chat, man. Thank you for the support, and great job on the dynasty trades for sure. 1 second, we'll get to the next question. I just need water. Julian says that he is tanking 10-team super flex. Baseline is Lamar for Stroud plus multiple first and seconds. Some other pieces could be. Hold on. Reading. 10-team super flex. Baseline is Lamar for Stroud and multiple picks. Other pieces could give. So if you're able to move Lamar for Stroud and multiple firsts as a rebuilder, that's absolutely a win. I'd be willing to do that. And then I'm not a major fan of moving Ayuk and Andrews for Johnston and picks. I'd rather have Ayuk than Johnston for sure. Andrews as a rebuilder, as a tanking rebuilder, you can absolutely move off of Andrews for first round picks. But I mean, I need something in there more to move off of Ayuk for Johnston. Because I think Ayuk could be, I still think he's a good solid piece to move in through a tank. He's only like 25, 26. So I still believe that he is, where is he? 25. Yeah. I still think that he's going to be great. And if he hits free agency, he could go somewhere and be like an actual wide receiver one and not kind of, I'm not saying stuck in San Fran, but used as a legitimate wide receiver one. I've heard somebody, and I think this is a great comp, like he could be like the next Stephon Diggs, where he goes to some other team with a really good quarterback, and breaks out as like an actual like alpha wide receiver one, out and leaves a place where he was just kind of an wide receiver one. You know what I'm saying? So, but Lamar for Stroud multiple firsts, that's if you can get multiple firsts, like holy crap, dude. I'm absolutely doing that. Phoenix has Joe Mixon and Jamar Chase. Should you be moving them, or are you stuck in a hold? I'm not moving Jamar Chase. I'm keeping Jamar for sure. Mixon, I think, is kind of a hit or miss. I do think that he has a good opportunity this week against Arizona to kind of do something. I'm waiting for him to just like score a touchdown. Honestly, like he needs to have a decent game where because the volume has still been there for Mixon. He just hasn't really scored, and he hasn't been overly efficient with the volume that he's had. But if he has a game where he has, 18 to 20 touches for like 100 yards and a touchdown, and some of those touches are receptions, 3 or 4 of them, then that's going to be, like a 20-point fantasy game. And then everybody's going to be like, oh, crap, Joe Mixon is back. We forgot that he was there. And that's going to be great for him. So I'm kind of waiting on that Joe Mixon game to happen. And I think it's coming over the next couple of weeks. Could even be this weekend against Arizona. So I'm holding on until that game happens. And then if his value rises because of that game, similar to like kind of what I was waiting for, that same thing to happen with Justin Fields as well. And I saw Denver, coming up here now a couple weeks ago, but weeks 2 and 3, I was like, Denver's right up there. They're coming up for Justin Fields. So was kind of waiting for that explosion game. Fields' value has gone up for sure now, especially after last night. So I'm kind of hoping for that same thing to happen for Mixon before I move him. So I'm holding on to both of them, especially Chase, and waiting for that Mixon game. You know what I'm saying? Chris is in the chat. Chris is also a DLF YouTube member. He says that he has been stashing Jeff Wilson in as many leagues as he can on his IR. Love it. I think he'll get the majority of the calls when healthy. Do you think that's realistic, or will Achane continue being Achane? I do think that Achane is going to continue just kind of being the main guy. I think whenever Wilson comes back, it's kind of going to be a gross like three-headed committee, and you're never really going to be able to trust any one of the three. But I think if you had to pick one of the three, it would still be Achane moving forward. And I even think that Mostert would still be ahead of Wilson, maybe for a week or two while Wilson's coming back. But I do still love having Jeff Wilson on your IR. And I do think that there's an opportunity that if one of Mostert or Achane were to get hurt, that's kind of where the money's made with Jeff Wilson. So I don't think he's going to be a player that you're going to be wanting to start and in your lineup if Achane and Mostert are both healthy. But if one of them gets hurt, then that's when he can be played. Joe, 12-team Superflex PPR, start 10. Those are his quarterbacks. Those are his running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. He's 1-3, but second most points for. Holy moly. That's super unfortunate. Did you get like Achane Achane 1 week, and then maybe you got the Buffalo stack last week? Hopefully you didn't get the Fields and DJ Moore stack. That's like 120 points right there. All right, so that's the team. Also got 224 firsts, got a couple of offers for Brock Purdy. Do I flip him for another first? Do I try to trade him for a tight end? Thought about pairing him with DJ Moore. Oh, you have DJ Moore, so you didn't. You scored 60 points last night. Never mind. To upgrade at wide receiver, or do I just hold tight with the quarterback depth as Anthony Richardson seems a little injury prone? I'm not worried about the Anthony Richardson injuries. I'm not really calling him injury prone. That just was weird. So the fact that you're 1-3, I feel like, so if you followed kind of like my video that I dropped about tips that I would be doing at different levels of competition, I feel like you're a middle of the pack team. With the fact that you're second most in points for, you've just been like super unlucky so far. So I would be holding steady. I'd keep Purdy over a random first. And I would be doing that kind of almost regardless. I feel like that I would just rather have Brock Purdy than a random first in Superflex. Yeah, I think I just hold steady. I mean, if you can move him and DJ Moore to move up, then you can do that. I would honestly be looking at moving Purdy and Sutton if you can try to find an actual contender that might need a wide receiver. And you can buy low on somebody else. Maybe you can buy low on like a DK Metcalf, or go and get like Devonta Smith or somebody like that. I don't know, that's way too high. Never mind. But I feel like like DK Metcalf might be a good reasonable like buy low if somebody's kind of upset with him. Maybe you can go get, I don't know, like Christian Watson or somebody at wide receiver. Then that kind of helps. Or maybe you do Purdy and Garrett Wilson, and then you're able to bump up into like the Jamar Chase tier level. Well, you could also try and do that as well. Quentin Johnson might be another play that you could look to move after this week too. But I'd probably hold steady mostly with what you have. I would try to see if you string a couple wins together over the next couple of weeks. Maybe you end up being 4-3 by the end of October, 4-3 or 5-3 by the end of October. And then you're contending. And then you still have 224 first, and you're looking good for this season and later on down the road. I wouldn't touch the first though. And I wouldn't sell Purdy for just a first. But if you want to try to mess with something, then you can. Tight end, yeah, with Laporta and Hawk, you have Pitts. If you can move Pitts flip them for one of the other two, like Pitts and Cortland Sutton for Hawk or Laporta, perfect. If you can do that, that'd be great. Phoenix has Miles Sanders. You don't really want to start him this week. Who are some trade targets I could grab with him, or are you holding him in this poor Panthers offense? if you could do this Gibbs trade, I'm all for it. Um, that would be great. Yeah, Sanders is just a weird kind of player. I think like he has the volume and that's good, but it's just kind of not enough in the Panthers offense because that Panthers offense is not really all that good. Can you move him for maybe like a wide receiver like a Godwin or Michael Pittman, or maybe you can try to buy low on like Aaron Jones because Jones came back last week and did not look good, did not play well. Or maybe James Cook, are all kind of players in a little bit of a range where you'd have to add somebody to Miles Sanders, but it shouldn't be too unacquirable to go up and get one of those guys. Those would be a couple names that I'd be looking to move off of Miles Sanders for um, in redraft. Rick, start sit question. Week 5, full PBR, urge Jake Ferguson or Tyler Boyd at the flex. I'm playing Jake Ferguson of these three. He's been phenomenal. He's getting the volume. I'll play Jake Ferguson. He has a little bit more of juice, of a little bit more ability to do something with the ball in his hands than a Zach Ertz. And Tyler Boyd is just kind of, he is what he is, you know. Matt with a $2 super chat. We appreciate the support, Matt. Thank you so much. And a half PPR, are you playing Deebo Samuel or Romeo Dobbs? Deebo playing less than 100%. Yeah, this is a fantastic question. Let me verify my answer in my head with the 4-for-4 rankings from John Paulsen. You kind of have to. Where's Deebo? Okay, so Debo's at wide receiver 17, and Romeo Dobbs is at wide receiver 30. They're separated by 1.5 in the rankings as well. If it were me, if I'm looking at this and I'm deciding between Deebo and Dobbs, I think I'm playing Deebo. I know that he's less than 100%, but with Christian Watson getting another week into here, and you know the fact that they are playing Vegas is kind of intriguing-ish, but they could also be leading for the majority of that game as well too. The Packers, I'm saying, to where maybe this shot just kind of becomes a game where they don't necessarily have to throw as much because they're beating the Raiders, and that decreases the amount of opportunity for Dobbs. Whereas with Deebo and the Niners, you know that game could easily turn into some sort of a shootout where at least Dallas is maintaining being able to be competitive with them, and that game turns into more of a shootout than Vegas Green Bay does. In which case, even though Debo is not playing 100%, you know that he's still able to do something at least, you know. Because like if you look at what Debo's done over the past couple of weeks, like it's not horrible. Um, you know, like he wasn't great last year, but the 2 weeks before last week, he was a wide receiver 1, and then the week before that in week 1, he was a wide receiver 3. So I just feel like I trust Debo's floor a little bit more than Romeo Dobbs, just because they kind of manufacture touches and try to work him into the offense. Then I just kind of trust that in a game where they're probably going to have to do a little bit more passing than just running down the throat with Christian McCaffrey, because Dallas' defense is still pretty solid. But that might be more conducive to the Niners having to throw a little bit more to score more. So I'll play Deebo Samuel of the two, and that tracks with what the 4-for-4 rankings have as well. So appreciate the support. Hopefully that helped. I don't know if that improved your confidence in Deebo or not, because it is a little bit different and it is kind of weird. But I think we feel a little bit better about Deebo over here. Peter became a new member. Peter, thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member. On the 4-for-4 side, you get a few. I'm not exactly sure what the perks are on the 4-for-4 side, but I know on the DLF side that we have a bunch of member only videos going out. At least maybe one a week. I just dropped one yesterday that kind of matched with my video that I did for the competition level tips and tricks. So we have a whole backlog of member only videos on the DLF side that if you're a Dynasty player, you could take advantage of and gain some additional information on top of the content that we are already dropping every single week between Justin and myself. Ballard, pick one to start. Tutu, Burks, Shaheed, or Jameson Williams. I'm going with Tutu Atwell. Let me verify this with the old 4-for-4 rankings. But I'm going with Tutu against the Eagles. Tutu's at 74 flex. Burks is not ranked. Where's my computer? Taking a while. Shaheed is at 95. Jameson is at 168. Burks might not be in here because he might still be hurt, right? Is he even a go to play? Updating status, knee injury. Yeah, he missed the practice yesterday. He might not even play, so that makes your decision a little bit easier between Tutu, Shaheed, and Jameson Williams. And I'm play Tutu of those three. I want to see. This is kind of like the Breece Hall stuff that we were talking about at the beginning. I want to see Jameson Williams do it. I don't want to play him in the first game back. I want to see him kind of do it first because he could just run like 15 routes, if that, and not really do all that much for you. So I'll play with Tutu. I'll just, even with Kupp coming back, Kupp's going to be on a snap count, or at least I expect him to be. That's what McVay said as well. And I'll stick with Tutu in a game where they're going to have to throw to keep up with Philly. Ethan's asking if Jonathan Taylor is worth a late first as a contender. Absolutely. This is your last chance to buy low on Jonathan Taylor at the prices that he's been going at for the past couple of weeks with the whole unknown of the whole pup situation and does he want to play in Indy and whatnot. I don't think any of that necessarily matters. And the Colts offense has looked a lot better than what we thought it was going to be coming into the season. So take advantage of the depressed value on JT over the next day and a half, basically, before he plays on Sunday. Because I'm not saying that he's going to have like a monster game on Sunday, but when we see that he comes back out and he has, I think, solid volume and still looks like Jonathan Taylor, then I think that his price is going to go up and it's only going to go up from here on out. So I'm absolutely paying a late first for Jonathan Taylor. I'm not paying a first for Jonathan. I will pay a first for Jonathan Taylor. Absolutely. PPR 12 team Superflex from Bo. Trade Elijah Moore. Get Jaleel McLaughlin and Isaiah Hodgins. No, just give me Elijah Moore. Jaleel might be nice for this week, but I mean, what is Isaiah Hodgins giving you? Isaiah Hodgins should be on your waiver wire. So I'll give me Elijah Moore in this. I don't want to use the extra bench spot. So I'll take Elijah. Chris, how close was I with that counter for JSN? A second, a third for Adams and Godwin. I think that was actually good value. I forget. I was talking with Russ about that before, and I think with the way that our roster, like our wide receivers are right now, like we kind of do need help, but then we'd have to like sit like Puka or somebody because we have Puka, Waddle, and somebody else as well. So then whenever you add in Devontae Adams and Godwin on top of all the running backs that we already have right now, it's kind of weird for our starting lineup. And it just feels like we should be trying to upgrade more. But I think that's actually a good deal. Like we are willing to make that deal. It just, I don't know if it necessarily fits with our lineup after we kind of talked and looked over it a little bit more. But yeah, we'll get back with you for sure. Julian, 10-team Superflex, tanking Lamar or Stroud and 2 firsts. Stroud and 2 firsts. Absolutely. That's just way too much value on the table to not move Lamar for. Like Lamar for 2 firsts is already like kind of close. Like I'd still take Lamar. But when you add in Stroud, who's another top 10 dynasty quarterback now with the production that he's doing, I've called him kind of like the next Justin Herbert, so to speak, based on what he's been doing so far his rookie year. If you remember what Herbert did in his rookie year, if that's the kind of the trajectory that Stroud is on, I mean, I don't know how you don't take Stroud in 2 firsts for Lamar, especially as a tanking team. Take Stroud. Who should I pick up from the waiver wire for the rest of the season, Jeff Wilson or Keaton Mitchell? Jeff Wilson. I don't really buy into the whole Keaton Mitchell thing. I don't think he was all that great of a prospect either. So I'll go with Jeff Wilson. Russell, trade Dak and Zach, no problem. Sorry, Russell. Russell, trade Dak and Hunt for Henry Cooper in a second. 10-team Superflex, start 9. Other quarterbacks are Love, Kyler Dobbs, and Young trying to compete. And also, most likely have the 101 from another team next year. Hey, that's the best way to do it, man. When you can trade for a future first that just happens upon the 1.01 and you're still contending, that's fantastic. So trading away Dak and Hunt for Henry Cooper in 24 second. I don't like that. I would take Dak over that entire thing. Not even like Hunt is kind of a whatever piece in this thing, but I would take Dak firmly over the entire other package. In a super flex league, I get that those are your other quarterbacks, but do you feel confident starting Dobbs or Kyler? Or, I mean, Bryce Young's been terrible in terms of fantasy production. I know Dak's been terrible as well, too, but I'm not moving away a quarterback for a almost 30-year-old running back and a 30-year-old wide receiver and a second. Like, so this is just not a move that I'm willing to make in Dynasty. And I would try to see if you can do something else to get, if you need running backs or anything like that. That's just not a move that I'm willing to do. Brandon has Ramondre, Chubb, Najee, and Akers. So your running back room is pretty bad. What should I do with them? That's a fantastic question. Is this Dynasty, Brandon? I'm assuming this is Dynasty. I wish StreamYard would tell me where these questions are coming from. So Brandon, if you're still in here, let me know if this is Dynasty or redraft. I'm assuming it's Dynasty because you're talking about Najee or you're talking about Chubb. I mean, I'm going to go from the perspective that this is Dynasty. I would sell Najee immediately. I'm selling him for whatever the heck I can get almost. Yeah, it's Dynasty. Okay, great. I'm selling Najee for, I mean, I don't really know what all you can get for Najee right now. Like, can you get Zay Flowers or Pittman or Hollywood or Christian Kirk? Like, can you get one of those guys? That'd be great. I just don't want Najee anymore. He's a massive sell for me. Ramondre, I'm holding on to Ramondre. I still have belief that he is going to pick up here. He's played some really tough defenses, but he's had 17 or more opportunities in all 4 games, 18 or more opportunities in 3 of the 4 games. And it's just like the receiving efficiency just hasn't really been there. The receiving volume hasn't really been there since week 1. But I mean, the volume overall, like 18 or more opportunities every single week, like you don't really find running backs out there that are getting that type of volume. It's just they've been playing really good defenses. The Patriots offense in general just kind of doesn't really seem to have it all together. And Zeke hasn't really been all that much of a factor. Like he's been, soaking up like 7 to 10 attempts a game, but Ramondre's still getting 18 plus opportunities. Like, so Zeke hasn't really been an issue. So I'm holding on to him. I'm not really worried about him all too much. Just stay the course with him. Najee can go. Akers, I think you're just waiting for him to take over. I don't think you're selling him right now. Just wait for him to see if he takes over for Madison in the backfield. Chubb, if you can get a second for him, that'd be great. But yeah, I don't really know what to do with him either. Your running back room might be kind of dead for now. You're just kind of waiting for things to happen, which is unfortunate. But I feel like that's kind of where you are right now, sadly. But yeah, sell Najee. That's the big one. Oh yeah, 2-2. Sorry. Remember when everyone thinks that Washington defense was a good start? Yeah, that was bad. Although I went into that. I was like, I was considering putting Chicago as my survivor last night, but I have the Saints as of right now. Still don't know if I want to do the Saints. I might just take Detroit and just call it a day there. But I was debating Chicago last night, and they almost blew it. Almost blew it again. 12-team Superflex half PPR. Give Pittman and Hal get a first in 2 seconds. I am keeping Pittman. This is mainly for Pittman. Hal, I think, is the 2 seconds are fine for Hal, but I would take Pittman over a random first. And if you can just sell Hal for 2 seconds, I think that's fine. But I'm keeping Pittman primarily just for Pittman. Bomb dropper. I'm traded Montgomery, Josh Reynolds, and a second for Gibbs. Dude, that's just fantastic. You absolutely did good. That is absolutely man. Like Gibbs is still a top 5, if not top 4 dynasty running back. Top 5 for sure, dynasty running back. And you just traded away a short-term asset in David Montgomery, a whatever piece in Josh Reynolds, kind of for dynasty, and a second. Jahmyr Gibbs all the way. Fantastic move, man. Trade Puka and Dobbs for AJ Brown. If not AJ, what wide receiver could I realistically target? I would take AJ Brown on this. Because there's more known with AJ Brown, right? Like we know that he's the alpha, or at least like the 1A in that offense with Devonta Smith. We don't know what Puka is with Cooper Kupp back. I've been kind of under the impression that they're both going to do really well. That it's kind of going to be like how it was with Kupp and Robert Woods, where Puka's now Robert Woods. So that's not necessarily like the greatest with what Puka has been doing for the past 4 games. But I feel like I'll take the unknown out of this equation, go to AJ Brown, who is a known alpha wide receiver in a very good offense with a good quarterback, and just give me the known commodity of AJ Brown and remove the doubt of Puka being what is he with Cooper Kupp, and Dobbs is Dobbs. So I'll take AJ Brown. 12-team startup this year. I drafted a rebuild before the season started. You traded Garrett Wilson for Tank, 2 first-round pick. I've never seen first-round picks. I almost just said FPS, like first-person shooter or frames per second. My gaming mind. Tank Dell 2 first and a second. Depending on where those firsts are, this trade could either be really good or kind of meh. If one of those is early, then I think that's a good deal. If they're both late, like if they both end up being like 109 to 112, I probably still would rather have Garrett Wilson. But it's not a terrible trade. I feel like this is good value, and just it's really dependent on where those firsts are, and then ultimately what rookies they actually become. So I don't think it's bad, and I think it has a decent ability to be good. Scott, in a Dynasty 1 quarterback, 12-team start 10. Trade with a major rebuilder, give mid to late first and a second, and Burks. Get Higgins and James Conner. Oh, Higgins and Conner. This is a pretty easy trade for sure. Because I don't like the first and Burks. I would take T Higgins over a mid, especially if that's a late first. I would take T Higgins over a late first and Treylon Burks, and then the second for James Conner's money, just to give you, as a contender, a top 15 running back. That's fantastic. So yeah, give me Higgins and Conner. Ramondre or JT this week? Oh boy. Ramondre has a really tough matchup. Let me see here. I think I'm sticking with Ramondre. It's kind of the theme of today of I want to see it before I trust it, with Breece Hall, with Jameson Williams, now with Jonathan Taylor. So I feel like my personal answer is Ramondre. On 4 for 4 in here, Ramondre is running back 23 and Jonathan Taylor is running back 27, separated by half a point. I think I'll take Ramondre. I think I would temper your expectations. I mean, Taylor has just as bad of a matchup as well, too, playing against Tennessee in the first week back. I'll play Ramondre. I'll trust in the volume that I have seen him. I just talked about. Hopefully the receiving work comes back a little bit, because if the Saints are leading for the majority of the game, Ramondre should be the one out there catching passes, and not Zeke. So if Ramondre is able to give you 4 or 5, 6 receptions like he did in week 1, then that at least gives you a large enough floor that anything on the ground, if he has 50 rushing yards on the ground, 40 or 50 on the ground, then that at least just gives you a little added cherry on top to the receiving game. And maybe he finds the end zone. That would just be fantastic. But I'll play Ramondre this week as more of a floor and just see what JT does. Austin's asking A-Chain in a 24 mid first for Hall in a third. Oh man. I think as is right now, I would take A-Chain and the first, primarily for the first. If that third became a second paired with Brees Hall, then I would take the Brees Hall side. But I think as it stands right now, with that third being a third, I'll just take A-Chain and the first. But it's close. Daniel, which stash has the highest upside in redraft on your bench? Quentin Johnson, JSN, Mims, or Jameson? Quentin Johnson. Just with the opportunity that he has with Mike Williams out, if he can beat Josh Palmer, especially with I feel like with that, you'll know relatively quickly. Like, yes, we might know something about Jameson Williams with how he plays this week, but with the fact that the Chargers bye week is this week, I feel like that's time enough to kind of install Quentin Johnson into more of this offense than what he has gotten. JSN needs a wide receiver above him to get hurt. That's what Quentin Johnson needed. That's what JSN needs right now. Mims, I think, hopefully gets more work. But the fact that Quentin Johnson's already having his bye week 1, so that's great right there. You're bypassing somebody's bye week. Like, you don't have to wait. If you had Marvin Mims, his bye week, you're gonna have to wait on that at some point too. Johnson's bye week, you're already getting passed on him. I think he has the highest upside out of this group just in terms of like sheer alpha wide receiver oneness, like prototypical alpha wide receiver one size and speed and athleticism, paired with Justin Herbert. Quentin Johnson to me has the highest upside out of all these guys. And I feel like you might know relatively quickly too over the next couple of weeks, when week 6, week 7, once he has a couple games under his belt after their bye this week, then that would be maybe something that you know a little bit quicker with Quentin Johnson. Jeff with the $2 super chat. Thank you so much, Jeff. He's asking sit 1.5 PPR. I'm assuming this is Christian Watson because it's all wide receivers. So Christian Watson, Calvin Ridley, Zay Flowers. So you have to sit one of these guys in a half PPR format. Let me pull up the 4for4 rankings as well too. Let me get a drink while I think on this real quick myself. All right. So out of these 3 guys, Flowers has a decent matchup against Pittsburgh. I saw a tweet noting about what the wide receiver 1 stat line has done every single week against the Steelers. Pretty enticing to say the least for Zay Flowers, especially if he's able to just kind of stack targets and stack receptions. It is a half PPR league, but you're still getting that half point for all of those as well. Christian Watson, I feel like, is more boom bust. So if you need, I think Watson has the highest ceiling out of the 3 of these guys for this week. And then Flowers, I think, has the highest floor as well. So maybe that's kind of where you're at in between the 2 of them. Calvin, the fact that he gets Buffalo is just kind of like if he gets, I don't know. I just like that offense right now is just really weird. And Buffalo's a really, really tough matchup. So I think the answer for me is in most cases, it'll be Zay Flowers. If you really need a home run swing, then I would play Christian Watson. But I would play Zay Flowers in most of those. And that aligns with what 4for4 has as well too. Flowers is wide receiver 20. Ridley is wide receiver 27 and Watson's wide receiver 29. They're all, there's only basically like a 1 point separating between Flowers and Watson. There's half a point in between Watson and Ridley, and then a half a point between Ridley and Flowers. So it's all like 1 point between all of them. But it aligns with what I was saying with the fact that I think it's Flowers in most situations, in most circumstances. But if you really need like a home run swing, like you just played against DJ Moore or Justin Fields last night, then I would probably throw Christian Watson in as a home run swing to kind of give you some of those points back with a big kind of blow up game that I don't know if that Zay Flowers necessarily has in his arsenal yet. But thank you for the super chat. And thank you for the support. Hopefully that answered your question for you. Let me find where I was at. Where was I? Phoenix, are you dropping Dotson to stash Jeff Wilson? No, I'll keep Jahan Dotson. Full PPR pick 2. Sanders, Pickens, Addison, Mims, Shaheed. Oh, you get punt and kickoff return yards for Shaheed. That's interesting. Phoenix says he'd go Addison and Sanders. I think that's the way I'm going with this as well. I don't want anything to do with the Steelers offense, to be honest, which is so heartbreaking as a Steelers fan as well, too. I just don't trust Trubisky in there. Don't know what that's going to be. They play Baltimore. That's going to be terrible. Um, I'll play Sanders for the volume and the safety that he'll give you from that, and I'll play Jordan Addison as well. Um, so I agree with Phoenix. I'll play Sanders and Addison. And if you want the 4 for 4 side on this one, from Flex Rankings, Miles Sanders is Flex 48. Addison is Flex 79. Pickens is Flex 51. So that's interesting. So they have Pickens up there with Miles Sanders ahead of Jordan Addison. I don't trust Trubisky at all. Shaheed is 95, but if you want to bump him up kind of to where Addison is a little bit because of the return yardage, then that works. But Mims is 90 as well. But I play Addison and Sanders. I don't like Trubisky. Would you trade Ayuk for Brees and Jordan Addison? Full PPR. Devontae, Ridley, Higgins. I'm sorry, I'm reading his wide receivers. These are his wide receivers: Devontae, Ridley, Higgins, Ayuk, Michael Thomas. Running backs are CMC, Kyron, Damian Pierce. I think I'd keep Brandon Ayuk over Brees and Addison. It's the 2 for 1. It allows you to have an extra roster spot. And I think I like Ayuk more than Brees rest of season. And Addison should get more run hopefully later this year, but I think I mean it's not a bad trade, especially with the fact that you kind of have a hole at RB3, RB3-4, and your wide receivers are pretty solid. But what is Higgins now with this rib injury? And that team is struggling. Ridley's been struggling as well. I mean, he has the volume that just their team has not put it together. Devonta's great. Michael Thomas has been like solid as every week. I would keep Brandon Ayuk over Brees and Jordan Addison. Sawyer's 2 for 2 with the most points for trying to contend. Yikes. That is like the other one. It was 1 and 3, but second in points for. Worth riding the Lightning with Kyron, or should I trade? I'm not sure if his performance is going to last through the whole season. So this is something where the fact that you're most points for and you're 2 and 2, I think makes it an easier decision to say lean into going for the title this year. Because it seems like you've just kind of been unlucky with matchups, but you're scoring great. And if you're able to string a couple of wins together, so then you're 3 and 2, 4 and 2, 5 and 2, maybe you're 6 and 2 by the end of October, then it's worth keeping Kyron. If you go, I would say another couple of weeks and you're still 500, then I would say then definitely flip Kyron at that point. But I'd still give it another couple weeks, just see what kind of goes on. I understand the fact that he's a running back. He's getting so much volume. The likelihood that he gets injured increases with the more and more volume that he gets every single week. So if he gets hurt, then it just, he joins J.K. Dobbins and Nick Chubb, and you kind of have a dead asset. So I understand wanting to sell from that point of view, but I still think that you have enough here. If you're, your most points for, you're trying to contend, like you said, I would stick with Kyron for another couple weeks. See how it looks as we get into the end of October here. And if you're still 500, like I said, move Kyron. If not, maybe it's worth it that you end up, you strung a couple wins together, like I said, and you still have Kyron. And then you can kind of reevaluate from that point. Also, would you trade Ridley and Kittle for Nico and Sutton? You already have Sam Laporta. Oh, my issue with this is Sutton. I don't think Sutton continues this dominance. I mean, he might. I don't know if I necessarily think he does. I like getting Nico. I like moving off of George Kittle. Sutton, I think, is the weird piece. Can you get a running back for that? Can you get a running back instead of Sutton? Who does he have at running back instead? That would be what I would be interested in, because I think I'd hold at this point Ridley and Kittle, but it's so close, and maybe he has a running back that he's willing to throw in there instead of Sutton to make this worth it. Fired up the Hal Dotson stack last night with Herbert on bye. Dotson continues to disappoint. Is it time to move on? Need more running back depth. So who would you drop? Dotson, JSN, or Quentin? I would drop JSN of those three, to be honest with you. And But yeah, Dotson is super disappointing so far. There's a leaf under here. I don't know how a leaf got in my office, but it did. Anyway, sorry. ADHD kicked in there. Um, I would drop JSN of the 3, but yes, Jahan Dotson has been disappointing. He can't see your lineup anymore. I understand that it was a bye week thing. But if you can avoid throwing him into your lineup, then that would be ideal moving forward. Maybe there's somebody out there on waivers that is more worth having after this whole week of things. So when you're looking at like week 6 waivers, maybe you can drop Dotson at that point. But I think JSN is the first one to go out of these 3. And then Dotson would be next. Stafford or Dobbs this week? I will play Stafford. Dobbs has a solid matchup, but I think I'd still play Stafford against Philly. Sam Howell was able to do stuff against Philly last week. So I'll play Stafford with cutback, Puka, Tutu, Kyron, Tyler Higbee. They're at home as well. Right? Yeah, they're at home. So I'd play Stafford. Make COD great again. Would you trade away Bijan and Pickens for Lamb and A-Chain in an 18 PPR? He's 3-1. When an 8-team, every league's going to look great, but this is a phenomenal roster. Bijan and Pickens for Lamb, and I think I do that. Is this Dynasty? Or again, I wish StreamYard would tell me where these things are coming from. He would throw him out. All right, I'll get to you in a second. Hold on, I just saw your comment. Would you trade away Bijan and Pickens for Lamb and A-Chain? If this is no, you know what? Screw it. It doesn't matter what format it is. If this is Dynasty or redraft, I would take Lamb and A-Chain. Gotta get used to that still. I would take Lamb and A-Chan on this one. Sucks to move off of Bijan though, but it's just like A-Chan's so much better than Pickens, especially from this year. And Lamb is better than Bijan from a dynasty perspective as well too, or at least they're similar. And they're good for the rest of the season as well. Yeah, Lamb and A-Chan. Final answer. Okay, A. You said that he would throw in Miles Sanders, so you're saying that you could get Nico Sutton and Sanders? Or is just because if he's throwing in Sanders and you're getting Nico Sutton and Sanders, then that's a smash. But I would also do it if he replaced Sutton with just Sanders. Then that makes it worth it for me to get the running back instead of Sanders or instead of Sutton. But if you're able to just get Sutton thrown in, then I would do that. That would be great. So yeah. Where was I? Space Monkey Mafia PPR pick 1 to start this week. Jonathan Taylor, Sutton, or Terrace Marshall. I'm not starting Terrace Marshall this week. JT or Sutton. Sutton, it's that Jets defense, man. Good pass defense. Let me look at what 444 says, because my heart's saying Jonathan Taylor still. Sutton is flex number 67. Jonathan Taylor is flex 49. So they both have bad matchups relatively to their positions. Yeah, the Jets are third against wide receivers, and the Titans are 10th against running backs. I'm still playing with Jonathan. I'll go with Jonathan Taylor. Sutton has been kind of touchdown dependent as well too. So I'll just take the hopeful in the volume that Jonathan Taylor receives. Autofocus. How are you valuing Nico if you're in a rebuild? I would love to sell him for a first. If you can get him for a first, not get him. If you could trade him for a first, I think that would be great. I'm assuming that you have Nico. This is what you're asking. If you don't have Nico, if you can buy for anything less than a first, then I would be doing that. Like if you could toss a couple seconds, that would be fantastic. If you're looking to buy him, if you're looking to sell Nico, I would love to sell him for a first. So he might be one of those weird players where you're not you're not buying for a first, but you're not selling for anything less than that. Happens all the time with a lot of these guys. They have weird values. So that's kind of how I would value it both ways, whether you have Nico or not. Colby, which side do you like in Dynasty? JSN, Flowers, CEH, a second, or DK and Devonta Smith? DK and Devonta Smith. I feel like that one's pretty easy. I don't see. So JSN, Flowers in a second. I would take DK over JSN, and I'd take Devonta Smith over Flowers. Second and CEH kind of don't really matter at that point. So that's a pretty easy one. That's one of the easiest straight questions you've asked me, Colby. And you got the DK side, so that's great. Phoenix, Tutu or Tank Dell this week? I think I'm playing Tank. Of the two guys, I think I would play Tank. That's kind of where my gut went to. Let me see. Tank Dell is wide receiver 32, and Tutu is wide receiver 37, of course. So Tutu does have the better matchup, and they are only separated by an eighth of a point, 0.8 of a point. Sorry, my bad. But yeah, I just feel like Tank to me has a higher ceiling. I think that just my gut told me Tank. I can't really defend it all that well with the fact that Tutu has a pretty decent matchup against Philly's secondary, especially if Darius Slay is going to be covering Puka and or Cooper Kupp. Then that means that Tutu might have a little bit more range to work with. But if Kupp plays any sort of significant amount of snaps, I think that hurts Tutu the most, not Puka. Whereas Tank Dell has already solidified himself as the wide receiver 2 in this offense. And despite the matchup not being the best, especially compared to Tutu's, I will still play Tank Dell this week. Hopefully that was kind of good enough thought process for you as I was trying to work through that. Brandon, PPR Dynasty non-tight end premium. Would you trade Gibbs away for Andrews? You have Komet and Pitts, Bijan, Brees, and JT. I would take Andrews, and then if you could flip Pitts or Komet for a running back to gain that, to kind of maintain depth at both positions, so where you still have 2 tight ends and then you still have 4 running backs. I would take Andrews over Gibbs, because I think you're dealing with David Montgomery for another year or 2 at least, and that's going to be not what you want out of Gibbs. Whereas you just have Mark Andrews and you're just having a top 2 tight end. So I'll take Andrews. Buddy My Lee thinks Pollard's worth 2 firsts. He's 0-4 and he's wasting points. Got any tips on how to trade to make both parties happy? It's not necessarily wrong to say that Pollard is worth 2 firsts if they're both late firsts. I understand from the fact that he sees that you're a contender, so you should want him. I do think that it would be unwise of him to keep Pollard on his team as a rebuilder, and the fact that he's 0-4 as he continues to lose. Like when he gets to like 0-6, 0-7, he still has Pollard on his team. That might be unwise to continue maintaining that he's worth 2 firsts and just kind of cash out then at that point. This might be kind of a waiting game on your end, to where maybe you just offer a first and second for Tony Pollard and say, hey, that offer's out there. As long as Pollard's healthy, that offer is going to be there. And you just tell me when you want to actually accept that offer. And it might not be now, it might not be next week, but maybe, by mid to late October, he's willing to do that as he's 0-5, 0-6, 0-7, like I said. So I would just, because I'm kind of dealing with that too in a home league as well, where some of these guys that are rebuilding are holding on to people that they probably shouldn't be, for prices that are a little bit more than I'm willing to pay. So it's just kind of it's kind of a waiting game, I think, at a certain point, because I do think that he will realize that it's not smart to have Pollard on your team as he continues to lose. Offer a first and second, or maybe you have like a wide receiver or something that he could like to replace that first, that kind of bridges that gap between the first and second, kind of like what I was mentioning for Nico, like another player that's like, I'm not buying for a first, but I'm not selling for less than that. If you have a player like that you're willing to part with, that you just have extra depth on, then that would be that could solve the problem as a compromise. Dak or Dobbs? I'm playing Dak this week. Ryan down bad at running back. Chuba or Tajay Spears. Oof. I'll play. Oh boy. I think I'm playing Spears. If I can spell Spears right. Spears is RB 37 this week. Chuba is RB 36. Okay. Chuba, like Detroit's defense is rough. And I think that they're going to be in a negative game script for that one too. Tennessee, I could see being a lot more competitive. And with the fact that he's been playing the majority of snaps or at least half the snaps with Derrick Henry, I think I'll lean with Tajay Spears in a solid-ish matchup. All right. All right, let's go. Let's rapid fire these bad boys. Full PPR. Felt like I need an upgrade, so now I have a trade processing for ETN. Traded away Amari and London for ETN. I actually don't. Yeah, I don't mind that at all. I feel like that's pretty solid. Yeah, I'll take the ETN side on that one. Good trade. Good trade. Maybe a little bit overplayed, but I think it's a good trade. I like it to go get ETN, a workhorse running back. Amon Ra for Ramondre and Gibbs. I'll take Amon Ra on that one. Is Fields still a sell, or has he shown enough over the last 2 weeks to be a hold? He's still a sell for me. These were the weeks that I was waiting for Fields to have. So now people start to regain confidence in him, and then you sell. That's what I was waiting for. 10-team half PBR start 9, 1 quarterback. Have the chance to sell Devontae for a 25 and 26 first, but you're contenders. Team is still loaded without him, but of course he's a great piece. The fact that it's a 25 and 26 first is a little less desirable. If it's a 24 and 25, I'm cashing out absolutely. I'd probably if your team is still loaded without him and you can still win the championship without Devontae, maybe. If it's a 24 and 20, can you get the 24 and 25 first? That's what I would really likely. Ideally, I would like instead of the 25 and 26. But I'd still consider it, especially in a 10 team that increases the value of the first as well. The one quarterback kind of removes that value upgrade. But I'd really like it if it was a 24 and 25. But I'd probably still cash out if you can still win without him. Hold on, Tingley. Let me find. Oh, yeah. So you trade away Amari in London, and now these are your wide receivers. Well, now you can move a running back for a wide receiver. So now that you have ETN, Kamara, Achan, and Pacheco and Roshan kind of become expendable. So then you can move. Maybe you can pair Pacheco with Flowers or Dell and upgrade a wide receiver there, and not necessarily building depth, but upgrading. So then you have another Devonta Smith level asset at wide receiver. That would be cool if you could do that. Offers for CD, Nico in a top 4 first, 10-team, 1.75 tight end premium. Is this super flex? Is this a super flex top 4 first or a 1 quarterback top 4 first? There might be a delay, so let me see. Sanders might not play. I thought he was practicing. Wait a second. Limited participant in practice. See, the issue, though, is even though Sanders may not play, is that they still played Detroit. I think Sanders will still play this week. So it doesn't change my answer of Spears over Chuba. So, yeah, BCO, if you're still in here, I know you asked this question like 20 minutes ago, but if you're still in here, if you could tell me if this is a super flex or 1 quarterback first, that would be great. I think I keep CeeDee Lamb regardless, but it's more prominent in one. Like I would definitely keep him if this is a 1 quarterback league. Super flex, it becomes a little bit more of a question, especially if that first has a chance to become Marvin Harrison Jr. Then I'd probably take that side. Yeah, this is Amon Ra. Let's see. Play Christian Kirk or Miles Sanders this week. Thanks for your insight on the Kyron question. No problem. So I would play Christian Kirk this week over Miles Sanders. Again, Detroit. So I'll play Christian Kirk. Is Hollywood a sell for a rebuilder? Could potentially get Sharps in a second. I wouldn't sell Hollywood for Sharps in a second, especially if that second is from the favorite to win. So that ends up being like 211, 212. Then I don't think that's really worth it for Hollywood Brown. I would try to get a first if you can. If you're not getting a first, then I would hold on to Hollywood, even as a rebuild. Like, he's still what? He's 26, 25, 26. Like, that's not a terrible age to have and hold through a rebuild. So unless you're getting a first, then I'm holding on to him. Dynasty half PPR, trying to contend. My running back room is Saquon, Achan, Walker, and Elijah Mitchell. Oh, Tingley, my bad. I skipped your question. Your other question. You may not need Pollard for those two first, but I would try to do the first and second for Pollard and just say, hey, I will leave this trade out here as long as Pollard is healthy. Just tell me when you want to accept it. Tingley, my bad, man. I skipped right over this. Start Trevor Lawrence or Jared Goff this week. They are neck and neck in the 4-for-4 rankings. Goff is quarterback 11 and Trevor Lawrence is quarterback 12. So now I got to come up with a reasoning for which one I want to pick. So they both have rough matchups. Goff has a slightly better matchup. Goff is also at home, and he usually produces a lot better at home than he does on the road. So there's a plus for that. Trevor Lawrence is on the road in Buffalo. And Goff has just had better production recently. So maybe I trust that a little bit more with Jameson Williams coming back. And maybe it ends up being some sort of a matchup where they throw to get a lead before they start running the ball down Carolina's throat. But I could totally understand as well, too. Like, Buffalo comes out and Trevor Lawrence is going to have to throw. I totally get that aspect as well, too. You also get a little bit more rushing production out of Trevor Lawrence. Man, I'm just going back and forth on who I would start. Phoenix says that he thinks that he would start Goff in the Lions offense. They're going to smash the Panthers, that and the Jags. They've been weird and they're playing the shutdown Bills. T-Law is in London. Yeah, I totally forgot that one too. They're back in London again. That's so weird. So he is on the road. By technicality, I was not wrong. He is away. But yeah, so they're in London. Man. I think I'd play Goff. I think I would play Goff. I'm just going to leave it at that. I think I'll play Goff. But if you want to play Lawrence because you think that they're going to have to throw a ton and the volume's going to be there for him to, even if he throws a pick or two, that he's still going to have to throw to keep up with the Bills, then I get that as well. But I think I play Goff. Mateo wants to trade for an elite wide receiver 1 like Tyreek. Want separate trade for Anthony Richardson. Also, trade ideas based on this. This is one quarterback, I'm assuming. Is this Dynasty or redraft? My bad. I need that in there as well. Mateo, let me know if this is Dynasty or redraft. Oh, okay, awesome. I was going to come back to your question, but you got in here. All right. One quarterback redraft. Okay, so I don't know. So the interesting part is, like, if you get Tyreek Hill, I would not trade for Anthony Richardson because then you got the Tua Tyreek stack, and that would just be amazing. I think off the rip, what I can see here is that one of Cup or Puka become expendable for a wide receiver one like Tyreek. So fashioning up a trade. Do you think? I don't know if you get Tyreek with Puka and Tank Dell. I don't know if that's enough for you. But it's probably worth a shot. Like, because you have a lot of wide receivers here. So if you can condense and consolidate these wide receivers into just a better wide receiver one that you can pick up some guys off a waiver wire, then that would be great. Like if you could just throw Puka, Judy, and Tank Dell and go get Tyreek, I would be doing that absolutely. You could also, I mean, exactly. Yeah, that's what I would be trying to do. Is just try to basically just pair either Puka or Cup with Judy and Tank and just go get Tyreek. And then if you go get Tyreek, then you can. I would probably just stick with Tua. But another wide receiver, like if you go and you get like Lamb or AJ Brown or somebody like that, that changes the price. You probably don't need to include Judy at that point to go get another one of those wide receivers. Still a wide receiver one though. So if you do that, and then you want Anthony Richardson still because you think that he's going to be nutty, then I think that's where you start looking at like, can you trade Tua and Alvin Kamara for Anthony Richardson and maybe like we've talked about Miles Sanders a lot, but like some other lower level running back than Alvin Kamara, and you're kind of doing that for the swap of Tua and Anthony Richardson. That would be kind of where I'd be looking at for trades for this team. But I mean, this team is great already. The only way to really improve it is just to kind of, like I said, consolidate wide receivers. Let's see. Would you start Mostert over Derrick Henry, Pacheco, Swift, or Pollard? I'd probably start him over. My initial gut reaction told me to start him over Pacheco. Let me look in here. So Pollard is a top 10 running back in 4for4's rankings. Swift is an RB1. Derrick Henry is a top 5 running back, and Pacheco is RB13. And Mostert's RB18. So, according to the rankings from 4for4, they say no, don't start Mostert over any of those guys. And I think I kind of mostly agree with that. I think the one guy that you can start him over would be Pacheco. I'd rather start the other three, Henry, Swift, and Pollard, over Mostert for sure. But I probably still would play Pacheco over Mostert just because of the volume that Pacheco is getting that Mostert doesn't necessarily seem to be getting because Achane is getting a lot of it as well. So I would keep all 4 of them over Mostert. But if you do want to play Mostert, I'd play him over Pacheco. Tamian benched Fields and you're playing DJ Moore. Yikes. Sorry that you already lost your week already. Maybe that makes Sunday a little bit easier for you. Yeah, that was that. Go for it. Drop Sutton to pick up Claypool. Gross. No. Cousins or Love this week. I'll play Kirk Cousins. Almost always going to start Kirk Cousins over Jordan Love. But I'll play Cousins this week against the Chiefs. They're going to have to throw. So Goff or Pollard for Puka and Brees. You have Kupp and could possibly get a wide receiver added to the trade. I'd rather have Puka and Brees than just. I mean, yeah, you're going to need to get a wide receiver back for sure. Like a decent one coming back, like not like a Sutton or Michael Thomas kind of guy. You're gonna need like, I don't know, like a Waddle level player coming back. You know, Olave, Michael Pittman at minimum coming back. KJ, Olave or Flowers in half PPR? I'll play Chris Olave. I'm almost always going to play Chris Olave over Zay Flowers. All right. I know I said rapid fire like 15 minutes ago. We kind of did, but I'm going to rapid fire again. Sit 1, Mixon, ETN, James Cook, Achan. Oof. Rankings say this is full PPR. I'm not gonna sit ETN or Achan. Cook is RB17 and Mixon is RB4. Bam, against Arizona. That's kind of how I was going with it as well too. I'm really in sync with these 4-for-4 rankings today. I would sit James Cook out of this whole group against Jacksonville. Jacksonville has been pretty good against the run. I would sit James Cook in this whole group. Tyler, who in the flex? Kirk, Laporta, Gibbs, Dell, Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones out of this group. Aaron Jones. Happy belated. Thank you. Thank you, my good sir. It was a good birthday for sure. Adventures from the Q, PPR flex, Ayuk, Christian Watson, or ETN. You have Love at quarterback. So I would play ETN of the three. I know it's Buffalo, but man, the touches that he's going to get is it's just so much more safer. I think if you wanted to go with a different one, Ayuk would be a different one. He'd be the other guy that I would consider playing. I don't necessarily think that Watson is really in this conversation yet, even with the stack with Jordan Love. I would play ETN, but then Ayuk could be a very close second. So if other people were saying take Ayuk or you wanted to play Ayuk, I totally get that as well too. I think me personally, I just trust in the volume that ETN is going to get. Yes, against Buffalo, but volume. Full PPR, I'm assuming. Yeah, the D in the R close on the keyboard. Currently 1-3. Trade Pierce and Kenneth Walker for Olave and Ayuk. Yep, done. Olave and Ayuk for sure. I love that deal. That's a great deal. Yeah, I'm still playing Aaron Jones in the flex. How are we feeling about DJ Moore? We're feeling a lot better about him over the past couple of weeks than I did before the season started. His target share has been just through the freaking roof, dude. That was something like I tried to account for like an increased target share, but I didn't think he was going to get like a 35% target share or higher. Like that's just wild, dude. So yeah, I definitely feel a lot better about him. We'll see how it goes because somebody else mentioned in here, I think it was Mateo mentioned about how they played two of the worst defenses. I mean, DJ Moore himself has looked decent in other matchups against solid defenses, but I'm cautious to like just be like, oh, DJ Moore is like a top 10 wide receiver now just because they smacked on Denver and Washington. Dynasty 1 quarterback PPR rebuilding 6 first in 2024. His league does have a playoff point system for the 1.01. Looking to trade away Cup. If you can just get a first round pick for Cup, done. First rounder. Am I crazy to start Dobbs over Burrow this week? Oh, so I've been off of Burrow or off of Dobbs in the other couple of ones. I don't think you're crazy to sit him this week though. Or start him over Burrow this week. I don't think you're crazy. I think I still play Joe Burrow because that just sounds so weird, dude, to say I'm going to start Joe Burrow over, or I'm going to start Josh Dobbs over Joe Burrow. I think that sounds so weird. I don't know if I could actually have the stomach to do that. But I think that this is the most reasonable Dobbs question that I've had today. And I try to do, yeah. Colby, I don't know, man. I feel like you got to make that decision on your own because I can't stomach that. It's still Joe Burrow to me. Jonathan's rebuilding. He's likely going to have the 101 and 102. His quarterbacks are Ritter, Carr, Levis, pretty rough. Who's a quarterback that I can go after now that fits my rebuild? Well, I think you can trade away Carr. Your team needs Jesus, not a quarterback. um, so a quarterback that I think fits the rebuild. I don't know if you necessarily can do it, especially if the team who has him is still like, I mean, everybody should still, I think, believe in Bryce Young, but I think Bryce Young's price has become a lot more acquirable than what it was throughout the entire summer and after draft season and stuff, especially because of how Richardson and Stroud have produced. That Bryce Young has not done that yet. So he might be more acquirable because of that fact. So if you're able to trade away, honestly, like all three of them, or if you have some sort of like Carr and even honestly like Carr and like a 25 first or something, I'd be willing to do that to go get Bryce Young. Um, I feel like he's the guy who might be the most acquirable. Maybe Kyler is in there as well too. Maybe not. Purdy might be another guy that you could throw in as guys in this kind of range that you might be able to acquire for Carr and a 25 first or Carr and Ritter, maybe. Um, yeah, I feel like those are the only three that I would really probably recommend actually going after because everybody else is probably too expensive or not really worth it from a rebuilding perspective, especially if you're already going to have the 101, 102, you're going to have Caleb Williams. So yeah, maybe Young, Purdy, or Kyler, depending on their prices. Logan's in first place, 4-0. Let's go, dude. Only area he's lacking is in wide receivers. Benai and Chris Godwin and Hollywood Brown both are on rebuilds teams. Do I target one of those guys from Mooney and some picks? Yeah, absolutely. Target both of them. You can trade away, honestly, even if you can trade away like Lockett and Mooney, because then you're buying back age with trading away Lockett for one of these guys. Because you're buying back a couple years of more production, if not potentially even more production, just outright this year as well. So I would say Lockett and Mooney and toss a couple of picks in there too to make it happen, and you're on your way, dude. There's an upgraded wide receiver core for you right there. And then whenever Deontay comes back, oh boy. Oh boy. Jason in a late first for Amon Ra. Give me Amon Ra St. Brown. Which defense this week? Texans, Colts, or Jets? Man, I'm really hard pressed to say the Jets. I think it's the Jets. Do they have defenses on here? Oh, they do. 4-for-4 has everything, dude. Texans, Colts, Jets. So Colts are defense number 9 this week against Tennessee. The Jets are defense number 15, and the Texans are defense number 14. So according to 4-for-4, the Colts are the answer here, playing against Tennessee. I don't mind that as well. The Jets, man, against Denver. That's just, I don't know. Something about these Jets players this week. I feel like something could happen. Texans against Atlanta. I feel like that's kind of interesting, but I feel like the Texans can just get like run over by Bijan. So I think out of the three, they're third. And I think going with the Colts over the Texans or Colts over the Jets against the Titans is the smart move. How do you navigate leagues that don't really ever trade? I navigate them by leaving them and finding other leagues. That's what I do. That's how I navigate. I navigate by navigating away. Now, so to be honest, yeah, it's hard to be in a league that doesn't really trade because you got to put in extra effort to make that happen, and just hope that something sticks. So it's kind of like you have to make moves knowing that you can't trade, right? Oh, I just shook my whole desk. But you have to make moves knowing that you can't really trade all that much. So if that's, keeping your starting lineup intact and not really taking risks on players that in other active leagues, you might be saying, well, I could just flip them in a couple weeks. Can't really do that in this kind of league. So not really taking risks like that, I think is one of the things that you can do to kind of navigate that. And just making moves more with the long term in mind, whether that's like long term for this year or long term like if this is a dynasty league, long term, like years over years, um, then yeah, that's tough for sure. Your team is really good, but even the 0-4 super low scoring teams aren't trading players. It's annoying. Yeah. Dude, I'm telling you, dude, like if you could find a new league, you can stay in that league, but it's really depressing to be in a league like this, and especially if this is one of your only leagues. So I would just try. You don't necessarily have to leave this league, but if you can find a different league, then that would be more fun for you. Then you could kind of take your lumps with this one and deal with it as it goes. If you're having more fun with a different league, it's just hard. I think you just have to make moves with the long term in mind and not take as many risks with players that are up and down on a roller coaster with their values and stuff. And some money leagues won't let you trade. What money leagues are that? You must not gamble so much. Yeah. That is trading restricted. And to be honest, I feel like it made me better. Huh? That's an interesting aspect to that. If you don't trade as much, then there's fewer mistakes that you can make on trading. Dynasty $250 buy-in trading happens, but it's super, super rare. Okay, so then it's kind of like people are just too scared to make the wrong move, and then they lose out on $250, because it's kind of high stakes at that point for a lot of people. So it's just the fear of making a bad decision that then costs you more year over year over year. Then you're just burning $250 in a fire pit if you're in a rebuild in these kind of trades or in these kind of leagues. But I do think it'd be weird that like if you're 0-4 in a league like this, why would you hold on to guys that aren't going to help you in a year or two? Like I feel like that would make you want to accelerate your rebuild as fast as possible, so then you're not throwing money in your fire pit. It's a weird. I feel like that is a weird perspective for sure. Um, yeah, and I'm sorry that you're in a league like that. Amon-Ra most likely not playing, so I'm going to flex Laporta and play Kirk in his spot. What happened to Amon-Ra's status? He didn't practice again today? Man, I thought he'd be back in. That sucks. Josh Reynolds becomes more interesting. This just makes me feel like they're just going to run the ball down Carolina's throat. Like, like Dave Montgomery's just going to have another amazing week. So I don't disagree with flexing Laporta and playing Kirk at the wide receiver spot. I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I think Aaron Jones is just safer because of the touch floor that he has. DG's 1 and 3 wide receivers are Olave, Ridley, Godwin, and Addison. Have two offers on the table: Eckler for Kupp, Eckler for Amon-Ra and Gibbs. Ooh. Yeah, see, here's the tough part because you kind of need a win this week. And with Eckler on bye, the issue, though, is, I mean, we were just talking about Amon-Ra might not play. Like, you flip away Eckler for Amon-Ra, who then doesn't play, not necessarily helping you out. Kupp may or may not help you out. I don't know how much Kupp is going to do this week. He might be just relevant enough this week to, like, score you okay points, but it's not going to be like a Kupp level game, probably. I think I keep Eckler. Is this Dynasty or redraft? Because that also matters as well, too. I'm assuming it's redraft, and then I will take Eckler. But if it's Dynasty, I'm taking Amon-Ra. So I'm assuming it's redraft. But yeah, I will just keep Eckler. Puka and James Conner for Jonathan Taylor. Is this Dynasty or redraft? Because I could see this going both ways. If this is Dynasty, I think the answer is Puka and Connor regardless. Yeah, redraft, you're leaning on keeping Eckler. Yeah, that would keep Eckler. Puka and Connor for Jonathan Taylor. I think I'm keeping Puka and James Conner. This is tough. Puka's such a weird guy to value. I'm keeping Puka and James Conner. Moving on. Yeah, no, we were talking about that. Skyo. Oh, there we go. Sorry. Non PPR. Start one wide receiver, one running back, one flex. So I will start. Oh boy. The non PPR aspect of this is killing me. Kamara is a start. Zay Flowers is a start, and I think Tank Dell becomes the other one because he has more of a floor that's not reliant on receptions. Let's see. Tank Dell is flex number 93. Michael Wilson is 103. Mostert is 49. Oh, yeah, maybe Mostert is the play. Mostert, Kamara, Flowers. Mostert, Kamara, Flowers. I talked myself into it. Mostert, Kamara, Flowers, Skyo. Brian, in a Dynasty 10-team start, 9.5 PPR, you're tanking, hold, projected 101, 102, 104, 109. What value should I target to get Derrick Henry, Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins? Should I wait or package? A first for all three of them. I think you can still get a first for Derrick Henry. I think you can get a first for Calvin Ridley. You might not be able to get a first for Hopkins, but if maybe you can get like a 25 or a 26 first for Hop, that'd be great. Or if you could like package Ridley and Hopkins and just get like a first and second, in which case Hop then for a second. But I would love a first for Derrick Henry. I would love a first for Calvin Ridley. Or maybe you could package them for players. If you can get Henry, trade all three of these guys and go get Amon-Ra. Or, yeah, there you go. Amon-Ra. I think that's pretty doable. And I would like that. Monty's field day for sure. Yep. Oh, you got Aaron Jones in at running back with Connor. Should you flex Laporta or Gibbs? I would probably flex Laporta. This could be the exact same game script for Gibbs as it was last week when Monty went off. So I think I'll just flex Laporta and hope that he gives you like 10 PPR points or half PPR points. I feel like this is going to be a Gibbs week. I don't know, man. If they're up so much, it's like that's why I just said, like, I feel like it's like the same game script as what it was last week. So it's just I don't know. I feel like I'm sitting Gibbs again in a similar game script. Reynolds and Madison for Eckler? No, that's not a dumb trade at all. Take Eckler. Eckler for sure. Tank Dell or Miles Sanders in PPR? You're leaning Tank, but you keep going back and forth. Well, if Sanders doesn't play, then that makes your decision easy. Tank Dell is flex number 90, and Sanders is flex number 75. I don't mind leaning Tank, again, because it's Carolina. Playing against Detroit. Oof. So it's just like I don't mind going with Tank Dell for the upside that he has. They're both kind of rough matchups. I just don't really I don't trust running backs against the Lions defense. So I think I would agree with you with Tank. D Money with a $5 super chat at the buzzer. This is gonna be the last question we do unless we get more super chats. But D Money is saying one quarterback PPR, 12 teams, send Cup Hyatt a third and a fourth for Hollywood Sanders, Chuba a third and a 26 first, or go after your 25 first with Cooper Cup. Finally made it to a live event. All right, let's see. I think the better value for this is the first one. Same league with the stupid 101 tourney. So does sending away cup hurt your odds? I'm assuming this is what is the case. Sending away cup hurts your odds of winning the 101, right? But you get Hollywood and Miles Sanders, and you're still getting it first, though it's in 2026. But that's why, like, I feel like this first trade is better than just trying to get your 25 first back. You're last and will be last. So does that mean that you think you're going to get one of 6? The first trade I think is better. Because even though it's your 25 first, like that's like I feel like that's valuable. Like that's important to have is your 2025 first because then oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Okay. All right. Your 25 first I think is still valuable in the sense that it allows you to kind of rebuild or continue the rebuild next year, right? However, the fact that you're still getting it first, albeit in 2026, but you're still getting it first, then you're also still able to get Hollywood Brown and Miles Sanders, like you said, to hopefully beat you, to propel you to win that tourney to get the 1.01 because it's stupid. And then I just think that whole entire package is more valuable than your 2025 first. So I think I'll take the first trade. Send Cup away for the first trade, and then get the 101. Go win the 101. Hopefully that made sense. We can talk about it a little bit more if you throw that into the comments again. If you have other questions or anything like that, we can talk about that some more, like through the comment section on this video or another video or something like that. But I think the first trade is the way that I would go on this one. Caleb, I'll answer this question. Should I give Quentin Johnson, Drake London, and Tank for Jalen Waddle and Michael Wilson in Superflex? Yes. I will take Jalen Waddle over all of that. And you get a nice plus in Michael Wilson as well. So give me Jalen Waddle. I like that a lot. But all right, guys. Long day today. Hour and over 40 minutes. Love it. Love the questions. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me. Parker. Remember dropping my trade for CD in here, and everyone, including me, thought it was a bad trade. Now I'm loving it. J.K. Dobbins, Ramondre Stevenson, Dotson, and Deshaun Watson for CD Lamb. Well, that's just a fantastic trade now. What a fantastic trade, Parker. Love it. All right, but I appreciate everybody being in here to hang out for the past hour and 45 minutes or so. I'm sorry that Paulsen wasn't here. Again, he is at a U2 concert in Vegas at the Sphere. So lucky for him. It's a birthday present from his family to be able to do that. So he was not able to join us today, but he will be back next week all throughout the rest of the season. So again, thank you guys for hanging out. Hopefully you have fantastic weekends. Hopefully you win all of your matchups or lose your matchup if you're rebuilding and don't want to win. Whatever outcome you want for your fantasy leagues this week, I hope that happens for you guys. Thank you all so much. Paulsen will be back next week, but we'll see you guys next week, next Friday, 12 Eastern time for week 6. Later, guys.